Well, hello guys. This is gonna be a big one here. This is probably gonna be the biggest movie of the summer right here. This movie came out a bit ago by the time this video airs. This is one of the very few movies that I've actually seen twice in theaters. Like I could only think of another one, or there might be a second one. I don't know on top of my head. So, all right. So what is this movie? So this movie is rated R. Def of course. It's 2 hours and 8 minutes long. It has 8.1 on out of 10 on IMDb with 176,000 ish user votes. The movie has 56% on Metacritic with 268 critics. Man, that is harsh. Really? 56? That's weird. Um yeah, that threw me off a little bit. 56. I thought it would be higher than that. But I don't know but Metacritic's notoriously harsh with its reviews. Like they're really hardcore. Um, the movie's directed by Sean Levy, who has done the other Deadpool movies. It stars Reynolds, who's the other Deadpool stuff, and Hugh Jackman, who did X-Men movies and all that. On Rotten Tomatoes, the movie has 79% by critics with 363 critics and 96% by audience people with 10,000-ish audience people. Now, the critics' consensus is I don't know if there'll be an audience says thing in this. It just did come out, so it might pop up at some point. The critics' consensus is Ryan Reynolds makes himself at home in the MCU with Arabic wit, while Hugh Jackman provides an adamantium backbone to proceedings in Deadpool and Wolverine, an irreverent romp with a surprising soft spot for a bygone era of superhero movies. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about spoilers in this movie, but I will say that I haven't I don't think there's ever been a movie, even Infinity War and Endgame didn't have this amount of spoiler usage. Like I shit you guys not. Just scrolling through stuff, like if you're going through a Facebook feed or YouTube feed or whatever, short stuff and ever, I can't tell you how many times legit spoiler Deadpool, almost full scenes came up, either from people recording in theaters or just randomly there. Like I almost believe like studios did it on purpose to get people in to see it, to give shit out. And if that's the new thing, that is I don't know how I feel about that. But but yeah, this is the only Marvel film coming out this year, and man, I will say this about this movie. Like it's funny because it's one of those movies where I don't know if it's the best of the three. Actually, I do know, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But first of all, what does this film do well in? Well, I can't think of any flaws in it. There is one thing though. Everything else is well executed. Everything you expect and not expect is here. All surprises and everything. I'm sure some of you guys have already been spoiled from it if you haven't seen it yet. But I think the biggest thing with this movie, and this is something some people have pointed out, is pacing. Personally, the only pacing issue I've seen, and I can't really say anything without giving stuff away, but it's a slight thing towards the end of the film. But personally, I didn't mind it. I don't mind the pacing at all. I will say this. In terms of you having to see other Marvel stuff, maybe Loki, but I mean, it's one of those things. Deadpool is kind of interesting because despite its connection to Marvel now, I don't really think you need to see other Marvel stuff. I will say this: if you probably would appreciate some of the stuff of the film better if you have seen other superhero films. I will say that because, like the critics' consensus says, it does, especially with Wolverine involved, it does kind of hanker back to some of that stuff with him. So, like I said, it's just one of those movies where it's definitely kind of a send off to like Fox and all those pre MCU stuff a little bit, without giving away anything, outside of what trailers and stuff said, because trailers and stuff probably reveal quite a bit, and I won't talk about that stuff here because it's whatever. Because I never watch the trailers. I don't watch. On a side note, I don't really watch movie trailers anymore because they give away way too much. It's like I almost watched the whole goddamn thing, so I don't even watch trailers anymore. Um, But yeah, but I think the first of all, the action in this movie is great. Everything it's so fucking funny. This movie is, and everything. It's just this movie is just good across the board, except for maybe a little bit on the pacing side of things. There is some pacing stuff that I can see could be an issue. Um, but I don't really mind it as much. I will say this. After watching a second time in theaters, I will say crowd does make a difference because the first time I watched it, the crowd was really into it. Like they cheered and laughed in the right spots and all that. Second crowd, not so much. Um, Granted, I'm sure either the people there have already seen it before or they've already seen spoilers online, but it was a bit more obnoxious. Obnoxious. I will say this, and I know I said it before. With a few exceptions, it seems like since the pandemic, it feels like crowds in theaters are they get really bad. They really can hurt the experience a little bit. And there's been some exceptions, specifically the first time I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, that was an exception. But there's been times where I'm just like, I don't know if I even want to watch these things in theaters anymore if the crowd's going to be like this, because it just kind of takes everything out of the fun of it. Um, but but yeah, this movie. I will say this about this movie. I will say this. If you love the first two movies, I don't know how you're going to feel about this one because I will say this. And even it might be a little bit of a spoiler, but whatever. If you loved the cast in the first two movies, buckle up because they're really not in this movie hardly at all. And that can be, and I can get why some people may not like that as much because and this is something too that I thought about and I think this is my favorite of three for really one big reason. Deadpool, I feel like thrives more when he's able to interact with bigger characters, and he's able to do that here. He wasn't really able to do that in the first two movies. He was really relegated to talking to B, C list characters. Now, was it still good? Yeah, but I feel like seeing him with these characters, I think fits more with him, and I think he's able to thrive with it. And I think that's why it's be able to be elevated a little bit. How having said that, I think now I think about it, I think the other thing to keep in mind with this movie is that and you've seen some of it in the trailers. It does involve characters that you've probably seen in other movies and such. Because they already showed a few there. It does involve variants and all that. Now, having said that, I do know that there's some people that don't care for that kind of stuff. And I get that. But I think this movie does a great job with it because, one, it's characters and stuff that legit we haven't seen in a while. Two, it has the Deadpool humor spin, which adds a lot. And overall, and I will say this, like, the Wolverine stuff they do in this is fucking great. Like, this definitely feels like a great return to form to Hugh Jackman, and I think the way they handle Wolverine and all that, I think is done really well. Because even though there is humor, there is some emotional heft that I think adds a lot. And I did not expect that going to this movie, because I thought that they're gonna do, I didn't think that the Wolverine in this is going to be as vicious in this as he was in the prior ones. I think they might have toned him down a little bit for the humor, and I'm glad to see that that really wasn't the case, and that it's still Wolverine. But yeah, overall though, it's fun, and not getting into anything. Now, what does this mean for the other MCU stuff? I don't know. Because the thing with the Deadpool movie here is that they established in this movie that he, even though he is in the MCU, he's kind of in his own little bubble. He's not really doing his thing with other people really, unless they do some fancy shit. Because, and that's always been Deadpool. Deadpool's always kind of been his own thing. That's kind of the appeal to Deadpool, is that it's his world. And you're along for the ride of it, and that's the fun of it. And this movie has that in spades. But like I said, it is different than the first two in a lot of ways. It's the same in a lot of ways because it has the same director and all that, but the cast and the tone and everything, it shifts a little bit with this because because you see bigger name characters, more some MCU isms are thrown in because it's in Marvel now. It's not Fox Deadpool anymore. It's Marvel Deadpool. And overall is it an improvement? Yes. But some things kind of have to be cut along the way, and I don't know how everyone's going to feel about that. And I also don't know if they're going to make a follow-up to this. So I can see some people who like the first two. I can see some people having mixed feelings about this. But here's the thing though, it doesn't seem to reflect that because this movie has recently broken the record for rated R movie earnings. It like very fast. Like this movie is going to make so much fucking money and so fast. Like it's hard, and I haven't really heard a lot of people say negative things. Now, when I saw this with the second time with friends, they didn't know how to feel about it as much. They didn't like it as much, which I found it interesting that they didn't. But I think the biggest reason why, and this is something too, if you're not an MCU person and you're watching Deadpool because of the first two movies that weren't MCU stuff, that could be a thing too that you may not care for, because if you don't really follow or care for MCU stuff, does it play a huge part in this movie? Not really, but I can see why some people that could be different. But like I said, this movie just come out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of retrospectives on it over the course of time, but overall though, it's very good, very funny, and it's just solid. It's just really what the MCU needed right now with everything going on with it. And to be honest, like I said, I think out of three it is the best, mainly because we get to see him with those big characters. While the first two, you know, he was definitely grounded in the gritty and kind of in this B C list area. I think, and he did well in it. They were good, great, they were great films in their own right. But I think this one just scratches that itch. That's the best way to describe it. It scratches the itch. But yeah, overall though, definitely recommend seeing it. It is still in theaters. I do recommend watching it. I don't know if you're able to, if you haven't seen it yet, good luck avoiding the spoilers. But yeah, overall this is really good. Definitely a recommend. But yeah, guys, that's gonna do it for this one here. Thanks for watching. In case you guys want to chat with anyone at the Campy Company, didn't want to use the YouTube comment section, we do have a couple of options. First one is we have a Discord channel. You can find a link that in the About page / About section of our channel. We also have a community tab in our channel as well. You can access that anywhere at any time. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the videos, and have a good day.